10 minutes of current events kick off right now. I'm Carl Azus in Atlanta, Georgia. In the Middle Eastern country of Syria, most people who lived there in 2011 have had to move. Some stayed in Syria, others have sought refuge in places like Europe. The United Nations estimates that more than 250,000 people have been killed in Syria's civil war. Over the weekend, the UN opened peace talks with some different groups involved, but it suspended those talks yesterday, saying there hadn't been much progress. The organization plans to try again later this month. International involvement in Syria is complicated. The U.S. continues its attacks on the ISIS terrorist group, but it also wants Syria's president out of power, and it's supporting some of the rebels fighting him. But Russia is backing Syria's president, and though Russia says it's attacking Syrian terrorist groups, the U.S. accuses it of also targeting any enemies of Syria's president, sometimes killing civilians and some of the rebels the U.S. supports. One thing is certain, there's no end in sight to the war.
This place doesn't exist, according to the U.S. Defense Department. But behind that berm of freshly dug earth, a small agricultural airstrip is being turned into something very different. A military airfield just 100 miles from ISIS positions. Satellite photos show the work that has been done here in recent months.
So you can see behind me they're working to extend the runway so that larger planes could land here. And the advantage of this site is that it's well secured inside Kurdish territory, so it could be used to supply U.S. Special Forces deployed here in Syria. He's coming now.
We were escorted away from the airfield as soon as we were spotted, told it was a military zone. It's another example of the U.S.'s growing military footprint in this remote corner of northern Syria and its deepening relationship with Syrian Kurdish fighters known as the YPG. In an abandoned apartment building closer to the front line, we were given access to the YPG's Joint Operations Room. It is a modest setup. 21-year-old Daham Hasaki and his colleagues talk to their men on the battlefield. Using newly provided tablets, they pass on enemy locations to a coalition command center from where airstrikes can be launched. Right now, this is the front line of Hasaka, he says. Our comrades there have seen the movement of 2 enemy fighters, and so we sent this message along with their coordinates to the General Command Room. When there are heavy clashes, the operations room moves to the front lines.
Who taught you how to use this?
He tells us a group of foreigners and Americans trained his commanders, who in turn trained him and his comrades. In the skies and on the ground in Syria, the U.S. is deepening its commitment to the battle against ISIS.
Up next today, a last-ditch attempt to save a ship off the coast of France. You can see what's wrong here. A cargo ship named the Modern Express started listing, leaning to the side, last Tuesday. It was carrying almost 4,000 tons of wood, some vehicles, and 22 crew members. They were airlifted to safety by Spanish rescue helicopters. In the face of heavy winds and 20-foot waves, officials said there was no way to get the ship back upright, and it had been expected to run aground in southwest France. But a Spanish tugboat got there beforehand. It managed to turn the cargo ship around, pull it toward open water, and point it towards Spain. Now the 2 vessels are headed for the Spanish port of Bilbao. In the U.S. presidential race, 2 Republicans announced yesterday they were ending their campaigns. Rand Paul is a U.S. senator from Kentucky and an ophthalmologist. He finished 5th place in Monday's Iowa caucuses, getting 4.5% of the vote. But now he says he'll shift his focus to his re-election campaign as senator. And Rick Santorum is a former U.S. senator from Pennsylvania. In 2012, he won the Iowa caucuses, but he struggled to gain momentum this year, getting only 1% of the Iowa vote. This leaves 9 Republicans still in the race. There are 2 Democrats competing for their party's nomination. Yesterday was a first for our roll call when we announced Tunisia. Today's our first time announcing Lithuania. Vilnius is the European country's capital. It's where we're happy to see our viewers at the American International School of Vilnius. Sailing across the Atlantic, we make landfall in South Carolina. Hello to the Swamp Foxes of Ashley Ridge High School in Summerville. And moving inland to Missouri, we've got the Gators watching today. Northgate Middle School is in Kansas City. This Sunday, some Americans will be cheering for the Broncos, some will be cheering for the Panthers, some will be cheering for the Ads. With more than 1/3 of the country expected to watch the Super Bowl, it's a unique chance for businesses to get creative, get sentimental, or get hilarious with their advertisements. The National Football League Championship draws record ratings to a single one-day television event. It is tremendously expensive to buy ad time for the game, and it comes with some risk for advertisers. Is it worth it?
Super Bowl ads cost a record-breaking $5 million this year. And for the first time ever, the same ads will be streamed online. So is it really worth the price? Food and beverage giant PepsiCo says it's a no-brainer.
The investment around this platform of Super Bowl is a big platform that for fans of the NFL is not just about that Sunday. All the analysis that we do, it's worth the money that we're putting against it because we're getting great payback across our business.
We'll have 75,000 displays in every one of our retailers across the country. 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl is the biggest purchase on snack and beverages. So for sure, if you look at the entirety of it, it definitely pays off.
How safe do you have to play it for these ads? Do you worry about offending one of the 100 million people that are watching?
Well, especially in a brand like Doritos, which is targeted towards a 19-year-old consumer, we're always going to get creative, which is going to offend someone.
A common theme in Doritos Super Bowl ads? Animals and babies.
For, I think, 5 years, we've finished as the #1 spot. It's sense of humor. You got to entertain. I think as a brand, you got to entertain the consumers, and obviously kids and animals tend to do that.
Pepsi, on the other hand, has focused on celebrities in the past. From Michael J. Fox and Cindy Crawford in the 80s and 90s to Britney Spears and even Elton John in more recent years.
Pepsi for you.
How do you all decide if it's worth having a celebrity in an ad? Some years there are celebrities front and center in a lot of the Super Bowl ads. Other years maybe not so much. What's the calculation about that?
We used to hire celebrities as spokesperson. No longer the case. Now we want to understand what's their narrative and what's the value they're adding to the brand story. So it's very different from how we've traditionally used celebrities in the past.
As for what you can expect this year, you'll have to wait until Super Bowl Sunday.
Stewart Cink has been a professional golfer since 1995. He once made a 47-foot uphill putt for a birdie, but this attempt was on a basketball court at his alma mater, Georgia Tech, and it was from 94 feet away. So the question was, would Stewart sink it? Yes, he would. Cink has made millions in his career, but on the line this time was $25,000 for a Georgia Tech student whom Cink was representing. That's the best kind of sinking feeling, the kind that comes from putting others first, a fair way to win someone a bit of green with iron determination and a stroke of skill. And for the student, it was nothing but net. I'm Carl Zeus. See you at tea time tomorrow.